The August sun cooked the asphalt outside Cole's automotive, making the air shimmer above the closed bay doors. Ethan Cole wiped grease from his hands with a red shop rag and squinted toward the property next to his small house, the old Henderson place, which had sat empty for 2 years. Now a moving caravan stretched along the gravel shoulder, 3 trucks, a glossy black Mercedes, and a low-slung sports car on a trailer. His wife Sarah stepped onto their porch, shading her eyes. "Looks like we finally got neighbors." Ethan nodded. He was 51, with a face weathered by salt water and desert sun, but his eyes carried a stillness that most folks missed. He didn't say much about his past. In town, he was just the mechanic who could fix anything with an engine and never overcharged. By evening, the new neighbors had unfurled a banner, "Harrington Family." Richard Harrington, a tech investor, waved at Ethan from across the fence with the practiced smile of a man used to owning rooms. His son, Travis, maybe 22, stalked across the lawn in expensive athletic wear, a black taekwondo belt cinched tight around his waist. He moved like he expected people to watch. The Harringtons threw a barbecue that Saturday. Ethan and Sarah attended because small-town courtesy demanded it. Travis held court near the pool, demonstrating kicks that snapped the air, his bare feet slapping the stone patio. He was tall, built like a welterweight fighter, with a smirk that seemed permanently installed. Ethan stood near the grill, holding a paper plate. Travis's gaze found him, traveled over his faded Carhartt shirt and the crooked fingers of his right hand, old breaks that had healed badly. "You work with your hands, huh?" Travis said, loud enough for a dozen guests to hear. "Mechanic, right? You look like you've been through a blender." A few uneasy laughs fluttered. Sarah stiffened beside Ethan. Ethan took a bite of brisket. "That's fair, they've seen better days." Travis grinned. "I could probably snap your wrist without even trying. Black belt, 4 years undefeated in regional tournaments. You should come watch sometime, might learn something." "I'm sure you're talented," Ethan replied, his tone entirely neutral. The lack of reaction seemed to irritate Travis. He stepped closer, lowering his voice. "Guys like you think because you've busted knuckles your whole life you're tough. Real toughness is in here." He tapped his temple. "And in here." He patted his belt. Ethan set his plate down. His jaw tightened just enough for Sarah to notice. She touched his elbow. He exhaled slowly. "Enjoy the party, Mr. Harrington," Ethan said, turning away. Travis called after him. "Sure thing, old man. Don't hurt yourself with a socket wrench." That night, lying in bed, Sarah whispered, "He's going to be trouble." Ethan stared at the ceiling. Trouble usually burns itself out. She didn't answer. She was thinking of the footlocker in the back of their closet, the one with the trident and the medal she'd never been allowed to show anyone, the one her husband refused to discuss. Across the fence, loud music thumped from the Harrington house. Travis's silhouette moved behind a second-story window, practicing forms, each strike crisp and arrogant. He was a young man who had never been checked. He had no idea that the quiet mechanic next door once led men through nights so dark that a roundhouse kick wouldn't mean a thing. The first confrontation was just a warm-up. The real collision was still coming, slow and inevitable, like a tide pulling back before it roared ashore. 3 days later, Ethan stood at the counter of Miller's Hardware, thumbing through a catalog for a replacement carburetor gasket. The bell over the door jangled. Travis walked in with 2 friends, both wearing the same gym logo, both cut from the same cocky mold. Travis spotted Ethan and his expression turned predatory. "Well, look who's here, the wrench jockey." Ethan didn't turn around. "Morning." "Morning," Travis mimicked, drawing laughs from his boys. He walked down the narrow aisle, plucked a 2-foot breaker bar from a display and held it out. "Here, this might help you loosen something for once. Oh wait, you probably can't afford quality tools." Ethan finished his catalog entry, closed it, and faced him. "You need something, son. I need you to admit you're just a scared old man hiding behind a dirty uniform." Travis stepped into Ethan's space, inhaling sharply as if smelling weakness. He knocked a small box of washers from the counter. They scattered across the floor with a tinny sound. The cashier, a teenage girl, flinched. One of the friends pointed a phone, filming. Travis snatched the shop rag from Ethan's back pocket and tossed it across the aisle. "Pick it up, mechanic. That's what you do, right? Clean up other people's messes." Sarah's voice echoed in Ethan's memory. "He's going to be trouble." He bent, scooped the rag, and folded it neatly. His movements held the precision of someone who had once packed parachutes and cleared rooms. Travis didn't recognize the economy of motion. He saw only compliance. "You won't even stand up for yourself," Travis said, loud enough that the entire store could hear. "I could tell everyone here right now that you're a coward and you just nod. Pathetic." Ethan met his eyes. "You done?" The question, so calm and undressed of anger, threw Travis off balance. He expected begging, maybe a shove. This was like punching fog. "You're not worth my time," Travis finally spat. He shouldered past Ethan, knocking over a display of paint cans on his way out. The clatter echoed long after the door swung shut. The cashier hurried to clean up. Ethan helped her in silence. Outside, through the front window, Travis revved his sports car, a lime green coupe with a custom exhaust, and peeled out of the lot, tires smoking. That evening, Sarah found Ethan in the garage, working on a cracked lawnmower carburetor by the light of a single bulb. She sat on an overturned bucket. "I heard about Miller's. Janice from the bakery saw the whole thing. She said you didn't flinch." Ethan rotated a tiny screw with his fingertip. "What was I supposed to do? Body slam a 22-year-old in a hardware store?" "You could have said something." He set down the screwdriver. "Words don't fix arrogance. If I push back now, it only feeds him. He wants a show." Sarah's voice trembled. "He's not going to stop. You know that. Men like him never stop until they've broken someone." Ethan looked at his hands, the mangled knuckle on his left ring finger, the burned scar along his forearm from an extraction gone wrong in a place he'd never name. He had broken men before. He had also carried wounded teammates through fire and held dying friends while calling in medevac. Travis had no reference point for that kind of strength. He only understood belts and trophies. "He challenged you to a fight today," Sarah said quietly, "in front of everyone." Ethan nodded. "He did. Are you going to accept?" He didn't answer. He just returned to the carburetor, the tiny adjustments, the rhythm of patient hands. But Sarah caught the faintest shadow pass through his eyes, something deep and dormant stirring like a predator waking from a very long sleep. For 2 weeks, Travis waged a campaign of petty torment. His car stereo rattled Ethan's windows at 2 in the morning. Someone spray-painted "washout" across Ethan's mailbox. Sarah found their trash cans tipped over twice. Each incident was juvenile, designed to provoke a reaction. Each time, Ethan cleaned the mess, straightened the can, and went back to work. The town noticed. At the diner, conversations hushed when Ethan entered. Some folks whispered about the crazy rich kid next door. Others wondered why the mechanic wouldn't stand up for himself. A few old-timers who had known Ethan for years exchanged knowing glances but said nothing. One Thursday afternoon, Sarah was putting away winter blankets in the back of their closet when her foot knocked against something solid. The footlocker, dark green, stenciled with faded white letters, Cole, E.J., USN. She opened it only once before, on the day they married, when Ethan had shown her a few items and then quietly closed the lid. He never opened it for her again. Her fingers trembled as she lifted the latch. Inside lay a crisply folded navy dress uniform. A trident pin gleamed from the chest. Beneath the uniform rested a small velvet box containing a silver star, its citation paper yellowed but legible, for conspicuous gallantry and intrepidity in action while serving as team leader of a Navy SEAL element. Next to it, a worn photograph showed a group of men in camouflage, arms slung over one another's shoulders, faces smeared with paint. A younger Ethan stood in the center, not smiling, just present. Leader. She closed the lid and sat back on her heels, heart pounding. All those years of quiet, all that calm, she finally understood its source. That evening, an unfamiliar pickup rolled down their street. A beat-up Ford tan with Virginia plates and a Purple Heart emblem on the back window. A broad-shouldered man with a salt and pepper beard stepped out. He moved with the same coiled stillness as Ethan. Ethan was in the yard fixing a sprinkler head. He looked up and his face changed, a rare break in the armor. He stood slowly. The two men didn't shake hands, they gripped each other's shoulders like brothers. Travis happened to be washing his sports car in his driveway. He saw the reunion and cupped his hands around his mouth. "Hey, mechanic, did you call for backup? Finally found a friend your own age." The man, Marcus, turned his head fractionally, assessing. He didn't reply, he just said to Ethan, "That the kid?" "That's him." Marcus exhaled through his nose. "He has no idea." Dinner that night was quiet until Sarah set her fork down. "Marcus called you boss. Why?" Ethan chewed slowly. "Because I was. You led a SEAL team." The silence that followed was heavier than any words. Ethan looked at her not with secrets but with a long-held weariness. A long time ago. That night Travis posted a video to the town's community social media group. He stood in his home dojo, black belt prominent, sweaty from training. "There's a guy in this town pretending to be tough. A mechanic who thinks he can avoid me. I'm formally challenging him. Public fight. No backing down. Let's see if he's got anything but oil in his veins. Saturday. The old grain warehouse off Route 12. Be there or be a coward forever." The video got shared over 200 times before sunrise. Ethan watched it once, face unreadable. Then he picked up his phone and typed a reply that would alter everything. "Saturday. You set the time. I'll set the rules." Marcus stayed in the guest room. For 2 days, the two former operators drank coffee on the porch, speaking in half-sentences that only brothers-in-arms understand. A few neighbors noticed the visitor but didn't approach. Travis saw the pair and laughed to his friends about the geriatric squad. On Friday afternoon, Ethan and Marcus stopped at the Silver Spoon Diner for lunch. A stooped older man in a Marine Corps League cap sat at the counter. He squinted at Ethan, then at Marcus, then back at Ethan. After a long pause, he rose, walked over stiffly, and extended a trembling hand. "You're Lieutenant Cole, Bravo Platoon. I was with the 15th MEU back in '09. You pulled 2 of my Marines out of a burning MATV near Kandahar. I saw the citation." The diner fell quiet. Forks paused. The waitress froze mid-pour. Ethan shook his hand. "Glad you made it home, Marine." The man nodded, eyes glistening. He didn't say anything else. He simply saluted, a slow, respectful raise of his hand, and returned to his stool. Word spreads in a small town like prairie fire. By sunset, at least 3 dozen people had heard that the quiet mechanic was something more. Richard Harrington, Travis's father, got a call from a business partner who'd heard the rumor. Richard confronted his son in their sprawling living room. "Do you have any idea who that man is?" Richard demanded. Travis was stretching on the floor. "He's a nobody, Dad. A grease monkey who needs to be put in his place. I'm hearing he was a Navy SEAL, an officer, a decorated one." Travis snorted. "Because some old jarhead at a diner said so. If he's such a hero, why's he turning wrenches? Guys like that don't end up under a car. They write books and get speaking fees. It's a lie he's spinning to get out of the fight." Richard's jaw tightened. "You've already made this town look at us like we're trash. If you go through with this." "I'm going through with it," Travis snapped. "And when I beat him, everyone will see the truth." That night, Ethan received a formal message from Travis with the time. 7:00 p.m. Saturday. Ethan replied simply, "Confirmed. No gloves, no rounds, no outside interference. Witnesses only." The no rules phrasing sent a ripple through the local fight community. It was an old-school code, the kind of agreement you made when the goal wasn't points but resolution. Saturday afternoon, Ethan opened the footlocker in front of Sarah. He didn't put on the uniform or the medal. He just looked at the trident, running his thumb over the smooth surface, then closed the lid. He put on a plain gray t-shirt, work pants, and boots. The same outfit he wore to the shop. Sarah caught his arm. "Are you sure about this?" "I'm sure I don't want to do it," Ethan said. "But sometimes a man only understands consequences he can feel." A crowd of nearly 70 people gathered at the abandoned grain warehouse that evening, mostly young fighters, gym members, and curious locals. Someone had set up portable lights powered by a generator. The concrete floor was swept clean. Travis arrived with his entourage, wearing compression shorts and wrapped hands, bouncing on his toes. The town's attention was a drug, and he was high on it. Ethan arrived alone. Marcus stayed at the edge of the crowd, arms crossed. A few people noticed the Purple Heart license plate on the pickup and started connecting dots they wished they'd connected sooner. Travis pointed across the dusty floor. "There he is." The mechanic finally grew a spine. Ethan walked to the center, rolling his shoulders. He looked smaller than Travis, softer, but those who understood close combat noticed that his feet were perfectly spaced and his hands hung open, not in fists. He wasn't a fighter preparing to strike. He was a hunter who'd already trapped his quarry. "Last chance to walk away," Ethan said, voice carrying easily. "No shame in growing up." The crowd laughed. Travis's laugh was the loudest. "Old man, I'm about to give you a lesson you'll never forget." Ethan's eyes held no anger, only a quiet, devastating sadness for what was about to happen. The warehouse lights buzzed, casting harsh shadows. The smell of old grain dust and sweat filled the space. A circle formed naturally, pressing bodies against rusted support beams. Travis attacked first, as expected. He launched a spinning back kick aimed at Ethan's ribs, a flashy move that had scored points in dozens of tournaments. It was fast, technically crisp, and completely useless against someone who'd been shot at in pitch darkness. Ethan pivoted just enough to let the foot sail past, then caught the leg and swept the standing ankle. Travis hit the concrete with a shock that rattled his teeth. The crowd gasped. Ethan released the leg and stepped back. "Point and control don't end fights," Ethan said, no mockery in his tone. "Reset." Travis scrambled up, face reddening. He came forward with a blitz of punches, straight blasts, taekwondo-style loud keyhaps. Ethan slipped them with micro-movements, head tilting centimeters, hands still open. He caught Travis's wrist, twisted into a figure-4 lock, and guided him face-first to the floor again. A simple joint manipulation, nothing broken, just helpless. Travis shouted in frustration, kicking out wildly. Ethan released him, stepping back once more. "You're not even trying to hit me," Travis screamed. Ethan's voice was low, steady. "I'm not here to hurt you. I'm here to show you the difference." The crowd began murmuring. Some pulled out phones. Marcus remained motionless, watching the exits and the fighters with equal attention, old habits. Travis's next rush was sloppy, fueled by rage. He threw a haymaker meant to end things. Ethan ducked under it, locked Travis's arm, and transitioned to a standing rear-naked choke hold without applying pressure. He simply controlled Travis's body, whispering near his ear, "I can feel your heartbeat. You're terrified. That's okay. Fear means you're paying attention. Now settle." He released him. Travis stumbled forward, gasping, humiliated in front of everyone, but he wouldn't quit. He reached into his shorts pocket, a small tactical pen, blunt but pointed, the kind designed for self-defense. He palmed it and lunged. Ethan's expression didn't change. He trapped the weapon hand, levered the pen out with a thumb lock that sent the object skittering across the floor, and put Travis on his back with a controlled hip throw. This time he kept a knee pinning the chest, not heavily, just enough. "You brought a weapon to a fistfight," Ethan said, and the warehouse hushed. In my world, that changes the rules, but not tonight. I'm not your enemy. He stood, offering a hand. Travis slapped it away, staggering to his feet. His eyes were wet with rage and something else, shame. He scanned the crowd, searching for the admiration he'd always commanded, and found only shock and whispered judgments. Marcus chose that moment to step into the circle. He held his phone up. For anyone filming, the man you just watched dismantle a black belt without throwing a punch is Lieutenant Ethan Cole, U.S. Navy SEAL, retired. Silver Star recipient. 3 combat deployments. He led a team that extracted 14 hostages from a militant compound in 2011. He's carried more weight than anyone here will ever know, and he didn't raise his voice once. The silence that fell over that warehouse was absolute. Not the banned phrase, but a profound emptiness where arrogance had been. Travis stared at Ethan as though seeing him for the first time. His mouth opened, but no words came. Ethan picked up the dropped pen, set it on a nearby crate, and walked toward the exit. The crowd parted like water before a stone. The video hit social media before midnight. By Sunday morning, it had been viewed locally over 10,000 times. Comments flooded in. This is what quiet strength looks like. That black belt kid brought a weapon, no honor. My dad served with guys like Cole. They don't need to prove anything. Travis's phone vibrated endlessly. Sponsors from local businesses pulled support. His Taekwondo instructor, a respected 7th-degree black belt who valued integrity, called him personally. Their conversation lasted less than 3 minutes and ended with Travis's instructor's belt privileges suspended pending a disciplinary review. The dojo issued a public statement distancing itself from the challenge. The Harrington house, normally alive with parties and laughter, fell silent. Richard stood in the driveway, watching a news van pull up to the curb. Reporters had gotten wind of the story. A small-town mechanic who was a decorated war hero, humiliating a rich bully without throwing a punch. It was the kind of narrative that spread fast. Inside, Travis sat on the edge of his bed, clutching his black belt in both hands. He hadn't slept. He kept replaying the moment Ethan caught the pen, the complete lack of anger in the older man's face. The thing that haunted him most wasn't the defeat. It was the way Ethan had let him go, repeatedly. The compassion in that restraint cut deeper than any blow. At a town council meeting the following Wednesday, the mayor asked Ethan to speak. Word had spread that the governor might send a commendation. Ethan declined the spotlight but agreed to one condition: that the town use the attention to raise funds for a new veteran support center. He stood at the podium for precisely 90 seconds, thanked the community, and sat back down. Sarah watched from the second row, eyes proud. The photo of Ethan's SEAL team now hung in a small frame in their hallway, not displayed for visitors, but for him. He'd finally allowed himself to remember the men he'd lost without burying their memory. Marcus left for Virginia on Thursday. He clasped Ethan's shoulder one last time. "You did it again, boss," turned a fight into a lesson. Ethan said nothing. The 2 men simply nodded, the way warriors do. Public opinion toward Travis shifted from anger to something closer to pity. He'd been set up for failure by a life without resistance. His father enrolled him in a local community service program, not as punishment by the courts, but as a private attempt to salvage character. Travis spent weekends painting over graffiti and cleaning the town park. No cameras, no posts, just work. Still, the memory of the warehouse clung to him. The moment he'd pulled the pen, he'd crossed a line that martial artists are taught never to cross. It was the lowest point of his life, and he knew it. A month later, the Texas heat had softened into early autumn. Leaves skittered across Main Street. Ethan was under a '78 Ford truck, replacing an oil pan gasket, when Boots appeared near his creeper. He rolled out to find Travis standing in the bay, wearing jeans and a plain t-shirt, no belt. His face looked thinner, the smugness completely gone. "Can I talk to you?" Travis asked. His voice sounded like a kid's. Ethan wiped his hands and nodded toward the shop's small office. They sat across a cluttered metal desk. A long silence stretched. Travis's hands trembled slightly. "I owe you an apology, a real one. Not for losing, I deserved that, for all of it, the mailbox, the name-calling, the pen." His voice cracked. "I was taught martial arts to protect people, not to threaten them. I forgot that. I wanted to be feared." Ethan let the words settle. Then he leaned forward. "Fear is easy. I've lived with it. Every man I served with lived with it. The trick isn't to make others feel it, it's to act despite it. You let ego blind you. Now you've seen what happens when the blindfold comes off. What you do next is what matters." Travis nodded, eyes stinging. "I'm leaving the competition scene. My instructor said if I complete a year of community service and show genuine change, I can test for my next rank, but only if I'm teaching beginners about control first. I want to do that." Ethan regarded him for a moment. Then he stood and extended his hand. Travis shook it, the grip firm but humble. "That's a start," Ethan said. That Saturday, the town hosted its annual fall festival on the square. Booths lined the streets, and a small stage was set up for local recognitions. The mayor, true to his word, had arranged a modest tribute not just to Ethan, but to all local veterans. Ethan had agreed to attend only if the focus remained on the new support center. After short speeches, the mayor invited Ethan to the stage for a moment. The crowd, neighbors, shop owners, kids, applauded warmly. Ethan stepped up, squinting in the October sun. He didn't wear a uniform or any medal, just his mechanic's shirt. He spoke for less than a minute. "Most of the people who deserve this recognition aren't here. They're the ones who didn't come home. I just carried their memory. If you want to honor me, honor them by taking care of each other. That's all." He stepped down. Sarah met him at the edge of the stage and they walked together toward the food stalls, hand in hand. A few people nodded respectfully. No one crowded him. The respect he'd earned wasn't loud. It was a quiet, enduring thing. Across the square, Travis sat on a bench, watching. He wasn't bitter. He'd begun to understand that the strongest men are the ones who never need to prove it. He rose, walked over to a group of kids trying to mimic kicks near the gazebo, and gently corrected one stance. No showing off, just teaching. Ethan saw it from a distance, and allowed himself a small, barely there nod. That evening, back on their porch, Sarah leaned her head against Ethan's shoulder. The sky blazed orange and pink. The Harrington house next door had its lights on, softer now, the sound of conversation instead of music. "You changed him," Sarah said. "He changed himself. I just gave him a mirror." She squeezed his arm. "You're terrible at taking credit." Ethan chuckled, a rare, warm sound. "Learned it in the service. Credit's a liability. Mission's what matters." They sat in the falling dark, two people who had weathered a storm neither had asked for. Justice hadn't arrived with fists or punishment. It had arrived with the slow, steady gravity of a man who had faced the worst things in the world and still chose restraint. And in that restraint, a young man had found a path back. The town slept easier knowing that the quiet mechanic next door was exactly who he'd always been, a protector who wore his strength on the inside, where it belonged.